Ahoy guys, I am back, and because the first episode got quite a bit of response, I've decided to do episode 2. First things first, I am a game player. So if you're coming into this series and you don't want too many spoilers, this is probably not the video for you. I'm going to run through the events of this episode, and I'm going to try and aim to point out the highlights for you guys so you know what to look out for. So this is probably your key episode, essentially, for getting the plot almost down. The second episode was called When the Wind Blows. This is very important. We'll come back to that a little bit later. So episode 2 opens with Victor's proposal. So we saw MC Chan. She was asking Victor to reinstate her funding. And we see Victor has 2 conditions. If she can meet these 2 conditions, he will re-evaluate, not reinstate, but re-evaluate whether they still get funding or not. So his first condition is that Miracle Finder's next episode has to trend in the top 10 of social media. Condition number 2. So she stated that she would be top of the entertainment business in 5 years. She needs to come up with a proposal of how she's going to do it. She says that she will do both. She does put up a bit of a fight saying, why are you only reevaluating it? Why are you not reinstating? However, I know this might seem a bit mean. You have to think of it from LFG standards. Show hasn't really been... It's been essentially a money drain. This show, up until now, has kind of been a bit deadbeat. It's back again, though. So Victor has given her a second chance. He even does say it would be easier if you were to give up. She essentially says that that's not what's going to happen. She has a dream. She's got something that she needs to do, and she can't just give up. Victor then asks her, did you talk about what happened yesterday with anybody? He's asking about Evolver. He's curious to see if she's spoken to about it. We know that she spoke to Lucian, but she just kind of says, no, I haven't. She says that the idea of superpowers is fascinating, but Victor is kind of like, I'd rather not be interviewed by idiots. And he also tells her to watch herself. What we get now is very important. This might have been missed. This is quite easily missed. We see a chase scene of a guy holding a knife. She's in an alleyway on her own, and she sees this guy coming after her with a knife. But we clip back and she's in her room. This is very important. She thinks it was a dream, but I guess people who are watching this have seen the whole episode. This is a premonition. We'll put a little sticky note by this. This is very important. We'll come back to it at some point. What we then get is she notices she's late. Again, MC Chan does tend to be late quite a bit. What I will say from what we've already had in the first few scenes, MC Chan is very fiery. She's a lot more fiery than she was in the game. The way she stands her ground is very admirable, but I feel like it's been boosted a bit for the anime to work. So we'll keep an eye on that for now. I have found out, I did some research, there are 36 episodes. So we might get the full game currently. I don't know. I feel like the recent update in the game is not going to be included. So if I had to say where I think it's going to cut off, I think we're going to cut off on a cliffhanger. We will see. That does mean if this anime does well, it probably won't. I know what game animes are like. You're probably not going to get a season 2. Okay, so going back, she runs out the door and we see very briefly that somebody is moving in next door. That's important. We'll continue that later. We go back to Lucian. So Lucian is now lecturing Kiki, Anna, and MC Chan. Kiki is like, oh my god, this is a hot guy. Where did you find a hot professor like this? And Anna's like, if we put Lucian on our show, we're going to be trending really easily. So Lucian responds and says that the LFG conditions are really harsh, so he would do anything he can to help. So essentially we know that she has spoken to Lucian. So what is quite cute is we see Lucian say, is it possible we can be a little bit less formal? I think everyone's talking like he's a professor, so everyone's kind of like whispering. She then talks about the other events. Quite surprising that she talks to Lucian about the events yesterday with the boy. Bear in mind what happened. We'll have a quick recap. We saw a boy vanish from thin air. He came out of nowhere to ask her for help, whether she could listen to his story. They say they need to find this boy fast. He could be key to what she's studying, what Miracle Finder is about. And they suggest that maybe we should go to the police. Maybe the boy went to the police for help. And this is when we get our next scene. So she's at the police station and she's waiting to find out about the investigation. In the real world, I don't think you'd be able to go to a police station and go, hey, are you researching, I don't know, bike theft in this area? I don't think you'd probably get any answers. We see a subordinate come and talk to her and say, do you know somebody at the top? Because Detective Gavin is really hard to get hold of. And we find out that Detective Gavin is one of the higher-ups' sons, and he's investigating the warping incident. I've got a card of this guy, so I will put the policeman up here. He is a card you can get easily. He starts talking about Gavin and how he got to his position. And Gavin, he walks in a conversation and he salutes him and he goes really quiet and then walks off. What you need to understand now is we know Gavin. You and Gavin know each other. You know each other from school. She gets this realization that Gavin was this bully. He was very rough. He had a very bad reputation at school. All she really remembers of Gavin is he had a really bad reputation. She received a letter covered in blood and he was calling her out. She says, I stood him up. I'm wondering if he remembers that I stood him up. I don't remember him having such a bad reputation in the game. As I said in the last episode, it's been a very long time since I played the early levels. I am fully up to date with the update release in the game. I did recently also pull the newest karma for Gavin himself. Quite ironic that this is an episode about Gavin and I actually have the new card for him. I don't mind Gavin, he's just not really of interest to me too much. She follows Gavin out. She seems to think that he's not going to help. He's walking off and he gives her a bike helmet and he's like, you need this? And he tells her to get on. She kind of sees his back and she's, oh, just hold the seat. I'm kind of nervous to touch the guy. And he's like, well, you're going to die like that. And we get this funny scene of him riding like a complete maniac. This is really also important. So in the game, you pull karma from a wish tree. You get different cards. So you get quite a few cards of Gavin on his bike. The bike is really important. It's just something he really likes. He likes his mechanics. He likes going fast. That's just who Gavin is. And she's like, I thought I was gonna die. And he's like, oh, are you resting here for a minute? Which is quite fun. Gavin mentions that this is a very dangerous event and he revealed that he was at yesterday's event. So what I did highlight in the last episode is that somebody was hovering during the scene with the boy. That was Gavin. Gavin, I guess I can now spoil it a little bit. Gavin is an evolver. He has the power to manipulate the wind. He can fly. This episode is When the Wind Rises. This episode is Gavin's introduction. She says that she's not backing down. And what is quite nice, we finally get a halfway card. So the first halfway point, we get a nice picture of Gavin. And then that flips to a picture of Lucian because Gavin and Lucian are kind of our main players in this episode. I also like how this episode was a little bit more paced. It was quite nice. First episode was a little bit, here's all your information. It was a bit of an info dump on you. This episode was a bit more chill. We get a bit more information kind of given to us. It's a little bit more relaxed, even though it's quite fast paced. We kind of settle a bit. It's not everything's going on at once. So we find out the incident started 6 months ago and that the boy we saw, the boy who had the really bad voice acting, it just didn't match his face. So this boy, he is seen testing out his powers and Gavin says that the pattern in the warping starts to change at 3 months and he says that the boy vanishes. So he suspects that somebody has taken an interest in the boy and his powers and kidnapped him. And he appeared a week ago because he escaped and he was trying to ask for help. MC says, I feel really bad. Was he coming to me for help? And Gavin says, it's okay, it's fine. When he finds him, he'll take him into protective custody. He mentions Evolver and then she is like, oh yeah. And he's like, you know about Evolver. He and she both know about Evolver. And she vanishes. So she warps herself and she vanishes. And this is where we need to hang back and think about the first premonition. She appears in the exact, a bit like deja vu. She's in the alleyway. We see a man coming towards her. He says, you've made it really easy for me being out in the open like this, but I never thought you had links to special forces. This guy is looking for her. She herself says maybe he's here to silence me because I know a bit too much, and he has a knife in his hands and he runs in to attack her. She trips over. See, this is the thing. MC in the game is very clumsy. She's often portrayed as quite a bit like a bit of an airhead. I have noticed that people were mentioning that she's quite feisty in this anime. So it's almost they're trying to mix both, but also they're trying to give her a bit of a personality boost, probably for making the show a bit more interesting, because in the game, you are the MC. You're the one who trips over. We see that the wind rises and Gavin appears and he blows the guy over her head. He tells her to jump. She sees as she runs up a staircase that she is on the top floor of a building and it overlooks... Oh no, it's a sea. It is a sea with Loveland. And he tells her to jump and she jumps. And Gavin is able to force the wind to push her upwards. And yeah, so Gavin can fly. He is an evolver. And then we get a very important sentence. And it's, as long as you are where the wind can reach you, I will find you. And this is really important. It's one of those things you need to remember it in the game. Hopefully this is going to come up again in the anime. If MC Chan is somewhere where there's the wind blowing, if she's outside and the wind can reach her, Gavin can find her. And that is his evolver power. He's got the power over wind. So we saw Victor, he's got the power over time. Gavin has wind control. Gavin puts her on a roof and tells her that he'll come back for her, but he needs to go and finish something up. He chases down the attacker. He kind of kung fu's him right over his head in quite a nice fluid motion, and he rests. We see that the kid is safe, and then this is where I get a bit of information that I'm glad to hear. He mentions to MC that the organisation hunting down evolvers is called Black Swan. Now, Black Swan is something I didn't want to mention last episode because I wasn't sure if they were going to put it in. So last episode, we saw these people who were hunting down the boy, and I just called them kind of the Men in Black at that point because I didn't know if we were going to get Black Swan. But it seems like we are going down Black Swan route. Your big bads for the game is this organisation called Black Swan. So the anime does seem to be going down the same route. Black Swan is basically trying to find all the evolvers and they kidnap the boy. He says it's really dangerous and she needs to know how dangerous it is. MC says that she wants to protect people, that she doesn't know very much, but she wants to learn the truth. Gavin says, you need to take this. And he gives her a bracelet and she asks him what's the bracelet for. And we find out that it is a GPS tracker. So if she's going to hunt down Black Swan, he wants to be able to track her or keep her safe in a sense because he can't guarantee her protection. That's a line you will hear a little bit later on as well from Gavin. I don't remember him having such a bad rep. What you'll find with Gavin is he's pretty standalone. So with Gavin, he is seen as a bit of a lone wolf. He's not going to stop her doing it. So he says, I can't guarantee your protection, but he does give her a GPS tracker to try helping her. What we find out, the design, if you're not familiar with Japanese iconology, is a ginkgo leaf. Ginkgo leaves are seen quite often. There's ginkgo trees in Japan. There's often nuts as well. They eat the nuts around autumn. We get a nice flashback of MC Chan playing the piano and we see Gavin outside listening to her as he's floating on the wind and there's ginkgo leaves everywhere. Ginkgo leaves fall around autumn times. It's autumn time and maybe it's fall and Gavin has noticed her and he's smiling. What we see from MC thinks that Gavin was calling her out and she says, I stood him up, I didn't go. What you're gonna get is that may not have been the case. Last but not least, going into our final sections, we now enter where they are filming the Miracle Finder episode with Professor Lucian himself. Lucian is answering the question, what does the future hold for us? He's talking about parallel universes. We get this nice black hole picture again on the board. So we see them filming and was it just a dream or was it something more? She foresaw the attack. She's wondering if it's a coincidence. What you'll get in quite a few, even sciencey programs, is there's no such thing as coincidences in the world. And it's very important to just keep noting that there's something else going on. I'm not going to spoil anything right here. I'm just going to tell you guys, keep an eye on it. Then we get the big reveal. So Kiki, Anna and MC Chan are gathered around a computer. They are waiting to see how the new episode of Miracle Finder has done. And we see that thanks to a certain Blondie, that Miracle Finder is trending in the top 3. So we get Kiro and we get Miracle Finder. We get it, guys. We get Found Your Miss Chips. This, I said in the first episode, this is the big thing with Kiro. I'm not a Kiro fangirl, but I do like the Miss Chips nickname. I think it's really endearing. So I'm so happy he's like, I found you. And I'm like, yes! I'm so happy that they've managed to put that in. So, and she texts Victor and she says, first condition cleared, and Victor's like, so what about the second? And we find that she's kind of struggling to write her report. She comes out of her house, and then we have this moment where she looks up and her new neighbour is staring her in the face. Yes, Luciano, as I like to call him. Professor Luciano is her new neighbour. And he's like, I didn't know you lived here. This is a nice coincidence. We kind of get this awkward silence, and then the anime episode ends. So this is it for episode 2. I like the introduction with Gavin. I think it's been handled quite nicely. I'm actually quite impressed at how this episode was handled. The anime so far is cutting out the fluff and boiling it down to quite a nice plot and quite a nice pace. The plot is darker than you'd expect from an otome game. It's a heavy plot, and it does get pretty heavy later down the line. So if you're like, oh, I don't want like a lighthearted, like lovey-dovey anime. Yes, there is a lot of romance elements in this anime, but there's actually quite an interesting plot going on. The Black Swan organization itself is definitely a very interesting organization. So I'm very glad they've entered that into the fray. That is actually going to be what we follow. We are following kidnapping cases. We're following superpowers. The plot is dark, it's heavy. Gavin does beat up a guy. Gavin, the way they're showing him at the moment, he's got a bit of a dark side. And I did mention this in the previous episode, if we were to sum up the characters so you guys get a nice overview. Lucian isn't all he seems either. So when I said that his eyes were a pinky colour, Lucian's eyes give away that he is mysterious. Lucian is a very interesting character. I will talk more down the line when we get to it. The plot isn't as straightforward as some certain animes are, like you'll get like Route A, here's the guys, and then stuff happens, this happens kind of thing. The plot here is pretty intense. So far in the game, if I'm going to float back to the game, we are on chapter 17. It might be a little higher. We are literally in chapter 1. What you need to know is there is a very long plot which has been worked on for years. I think Mr. Love, the game, I started playing it 2 years ago. I think it was relatively new back in 2 years ago. So it's been this is a plot that's been worked on and developed over the years. They've got a very good art team. They've got a very good storyline team. As much as I am seeing the negativity towards it, if you are going to watch this anime, please try and keep an open mind. So far, I've got nothing really to say about the opening credits or the end credits. The music doesn't really stand out, but it does its job. The pacing in this episode was really nice. Also, I need to say it again, this is Mappa. Mappa is handling Attack on Titan season 4. Are we on 4 now? I think we're on 4. They are handling the finale of Attack on Titan. So Mappa Studios is nothing to be sneered at. To give them credit, this anime looks beautiful. The game itself is gorgeous, but the visuals on this anime are gorgeous. I'm not so keen on some of the character work. As for like the backgrounds and the visuals, they look gorgeous. You've got to give them a bit of credit for how beautiful this anime does look. Character-wise, I'm just so used to seeing the artwork we get from the cards, so maybe I've been spoiled by the game a bit and we've had to anime up the boys to make them easier to animate. I've got to give credit so far. This anime is going over my expectations. So if you didn't watch the last episode, I found out this anime was airing literally about 2 weeks ago. I screamed. I was like, are you for real? Kind of thing. And I wasn't really expecting anything. I wasn't holding high hopes. I've had a few animes of games I've played before, they suck. Most dating sim animes, they suck, guys. They really do. Studios don't want to find a route, so they'll avoid picking a guy. So animes come across as very unsatisfying because they don't want to like upset any of the fans, so they'll pick a middle route and they're never really fulfilling. Dating animes are really rushed and crammed. This anime is different. Yes, it is linear. The story's linear. This anime is going to be able to follow this route if they don't focus too much on dating elements. In the game, you kind of date all the boys at once, in a sense. You've got kind of your own harem going on. She hasn't actually settled down in the game. This is the thing. She's not actually officially dating anyone. The way the game works is you pull gachas and you level up these cards. Once you level the cards up, you get access to dates and things with the boys, so you can become more intimate with certain boys. So if you, let's say, okay, so my boy I kind of chase is Victor. Even though recently me and him have got into so many arguments, he is a handful. The guys aren't just simple characters as well. Each of the boys has their flaws. We've already seen Gavin had a really bad reputation. He's also a bit standoffish as well. Lucian's, I wouldn't trust him easily. He's very, in a sense, you meet him and you may not want to trust him immediately. Victor's my a-hole, okay? He's just an a-hole, but he's also at the same time, he's got lovable traits. in the game, he comes off as very brash at times. These characters aren't just two-dimensional. The fact that they are pretty three-dimensional and they've got these flaws. And it's nice to see that the anime isn't shying away from developing this further. I'm going to leave it at that before I babble on forever. If you want to see more, please subscribe to the channel just so you can get notified when the next video comes out. I will intend to have these up pretty late, so they'll probably go up Thursday mornings. Please like and subscribe. It really does help me know what I need to be focusing on. I am reviewing The God of High School. It's not going very well. I mean, you guys seem more interested in this, so I will continue doing this. Please like, subscribe. It helps me out. I'm not monetized in any way, shape or form. So thank you for listening. If you've got questions about the game, do pop them in the comments. I'm happy to answer any of them. If you'd like to add me, I'll put my friend code in the comments as well. You can add me on Mr. Love and we can be friends. And if you'd like to add me on my anime list, please do. Again, all credits are going to be below. Have a good one, guys, and make sure you stay where the wind is blowing. Bye-bye.